Hi scientists! My name is Joy.
And my name is Yasmin.
And we are here in another Nature Memoirs online learning class. And today we're going to be learning about more adaptations in our class called
Survivors!
Yes! So are you guys ready? Let's get started.
So, what are we doing today?
Well, today we're going to be learning about physiological adaptations. You know that in the last two classes we have talked about
We talked about structural adaptations and behavioral adaptations.
and today we're actually going to be talking about physiological, which is related with the internal anatomy of the animal. We're going to be focusing in things that are happening inside the body of the animal that keep them in perfect balance. Do you know how is that called?
Yep, equilibrium.
That's a big word. But in science, we use another word, especially in biology, which is,
Homeostasis.
that is a really cool word, okay? And it's just everything that the body inside does to keep everything in balance. So do you know any examples so we can actually learn about them?
So let's say you're very, very hot and you start to sweat. That is your body trying to cool itself down, trying to regulate and create this perfect harmony. Shivering is another example. When you shiver and your muscles are moving rapidly, that's your body trying to warm itself up.
And that happens because I am a warm-blooded animal.
Well, we don't use the word warm-blooded, we actually use endothermic.
Endothermic.
Yes.
Okay, so I am an endothermic animal.
Yes. An endothermic animal, they regulate their temperature internally. An ectothermic animal, they go to a source to, let's say, cool themselves off or warm themselves.
In my body, because my body is controlled by my own temperature, right? So I sweat if I get too hot.
And you shiver if you get too cold.
Oh, and that is equilibrium.
Yeah.
Or,
Homeostasis.
there you go. So, another type of physiological adaptation is one that we found in camels. And this is really cool because I did not know this. In camels, they can live in very hot and almost no water. Can you do that, Yasmin?
No, I can't.
I cannot do that. So in camels, you know that we have the blood vessel, right? Which is kind of like the highway where the blood cells go.
Yep,
Our blood cells, the red blood cells, are in a perfect circle.
they're round.
Okay, so when we don't have enough water in our body, the blood vessels shrink. And the problem is my big circular red blood cells cannot go through, and that's why when we get dehydrated and we collapse. But in the camels, they are so cool and so adapted for this dry and hot temperature. Although their blood vessels can shrink for the lack of water, their blood cells are kind of like very elongated. So they can still pass by and they can still carry oxygen and still successful. That is a physiological adaptation.
Wow.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about 4 different animals today and their physiological adaptations. Are you ready, Jasmine?
I'm ready.
Let's go! Yep, here we go. So here we have our 2 amazing geckos. This is Cleo, the fat-tailed gecko.
And this is Leo, our leopard gecko.
These guys are a perfect example of a physiological adaptation called resource conservation. Resource conservation is when an animal stores fat in one part of their body. So if you see Cleo, Cleo has a big rounded tail. And what about Leo?
Leo has his very long, thick tail.
So what they do is they store fat in one part of their body. In the case of these guys specifically, they live in a place where there's not a lot of water resources. Cleo is from Africa, okay, in a very hot place. And Leo is from?
The Middle East, also a very hot place.
So there's not a lot of different water resources, and there's not a lot of like food resources around those areas. So what they do is they store all the fat in one specific area, and it's like having like kind of like a backpack with like snacks in it. And what they do is when there's no resources for them to eat, they can use the fat and the nutrients stored in their tail to bring that energy back. Also, you said and I said that these two, they live in very hot places and they are ectothermic. So if they will store their fat in another part of their body, it was gonna be way too hot for them. It's like having a jacket in the desert. And they don't sweat.
No.
So they store all the fat in only one part of their body. Now, what else do they do with this resource conservation tail that they have?
Well, another thing that they do is called caudal autotomy, which
What?
is, yeah, big word, I know. So take notes. Caudal autotomy is a self-amputation. So this is a last resource. This is only something they do when they feel threatened.
Miss Jasmine, amputation is like to remove part of my body?
They will drop their tails if they feel threatened. It's to distract their predators.
I like that. So that's the reason it happens to Cleo, right? In the case of Cleo, you can see that the tail, the new tail that she grew it like kind of like another head. And if I'm a predator, I'm gonna go and try to bite the head, but then the tail can be removed and then she can go and escape. So that's it for these physiological adaptations of resource conservation, and we're ready to go to the next one. Ready?
Let's go.
Whoop.
So these are our Russian tortoises. This is Patty.
And this is Misha.
A very cool physiological adaptation with these guys is their ability to hibernate.
And Yasmin, what is hibernation?
Well, hibernation is when an animal slows down their metabolism when it gets too cold. This allows them to spend a longer period of time without food.
Oh, but that makes sense because you explained about reptiles being ectothermic.
Yes.
So their body temperature depends on the outside.
Exactly. And as an ectotherm, when it gets too cold, they need to find a place to bury themselves and keep warm.
And because they stay warm, do they have to eat more often?
No, actually, they can spend 4 to 6 months in hibernation.
4 to 6 months.
Yes.
Okay, so that happens. Hibernation is when the temperature is too cold and they're slow down their metabolism. But what happens if it's too hot?
When it gets too hot, that's what we call estivation. So estivation is when they also slow down their metabolism to stay hydrated. It's when it's too hot. For example, with snails, they will hide in their shell when it's too hot to stay hydrated.
And it makes sense because every time that I touch a snail, they're a little bit kind of like wet.
Yes.
So if it's too hot, they will lose the water. So they go in estivation.
Yes.
To slow their metabolism and keep the water inside the body.
Yep.
Okay, that's another physiological adaptation.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So, but Ms. Jasmine, another physiological adaptation that has to do with temperature, it's the color of their carapace. Carapace is the top part of their shell on a tortoise or a turtle. So if you see on Misha has a darker carapace. Patty has a lighter carapace. Darker colors, what they do is they retain heat. So tortoises with this type of color, they live in colder places. On the other hand, you have Patty who has a lighter carapace and she is found more in hotter places because lighter colors kind of like reflect a little bit more the light, so it doesn't retain so much color.
Oh, wow.
So that's all for these amazing, beautiful Russian tortoises
On hibernation and estivation.
and the color of the carapace and their body temperature. So are you ready for the next one?
Yes.
Let's
Let's
do
go.
this. Woo! Okay, so the next animal that we're gonna be talking about is Hela, our emperor scorpion. They are from West Africa and is one of our biggest scorpion in the animal kingdom, although Hela is not as big yet. One of the physiological adaptations that Hela has is the production of venom. Venom is a substance that has a lot of toxin that when it's injected into another animal, it actually can cause damages in the other organism. Now, Hela produces venom that doesn't kill her, which is another physiological adaptation. It's like having their own antivenom. Now, Hela also can use that venom to paralyze their prey, which means that the prey cannot move. Specifically in the emperor scorpion venom, their venom, what it does is kind of like stop the muscles of the animal. So, Yasmin, if you cannot move any of your muscle, can you move?
No.
No. If you cannot move, can I trap you?
Yes.
Exactly, the same thing. So the prey cannot move, then they become breakfast, dinner, or lunch, whatever the time of the day is.
So does all venom paralyze?
No, there's different types of venom depending on the animal. So there's some venom that paralyze muscles, like in the case of the emperor scorpion. There's snakes that produce venom that actually attack a specific organ in their body. Either they stop the heart or the lungs, the animal cannot live anymore, they die, easy prey. Or there's some snakes, when they attack their prey, what they do is they break their blood vessels, making the animal to bleed out and completely die. So different types of venom.
So Joy, another physiological adaptation with the emperor scorpion is their ability to produce hyaline in their exoskeleton.
Okay, two big words.
Yes.
What is exoskeleton?
So their exoskeleton is the hard part on the top. So it's the top layer of their body. And hyaline is the substance that they produce in that very top layer. Now, hyaline reacts with the UV light. So when you flash a UV light over an emperor scorpion, they can appear blue or green.
I don't believe you, Jasmine. I have
It's
a UV
true.
light here. Okay, so you're telling me that if I turn this UV light onto Hela, it will react?
Yes.
And it will turn what color?
Blue or green?
Let's do it. Oh, yes. It does turn
Very, very cool.
super cool. This is gonna be good for like Halloween scorpion hunting.
Now, most scientists believe that hyaline, being a part of their exoskeleton, helps protect them from the sunlight.
Which is a physiological adaptation.
Exactly, because it helps regulate their body temperature.
That is amazing. So with Hela, we have learned two different physiological adaptations. They have venom, they produce venom, but their venom don't attack themselves, and they produce
Hyaline.
which is something that is produced in the exoskeleton.
And it reacts with a UV light and possibly protects them from the sunlight.
This was very cool. Okay, ready for the last one?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Okay, scientists, this is our last animal today. Her name is Fiona. Can you say hi to Fiona?
Hi, Fiona.
Fiona is a dumpy tree frog from Australia. Okay, she's also called the white tree frog. And she's also from New Guinea. She's an amphibian, which means that she started her life as a tadpole. And then later on, she grows legs and she lives in the water. But in the case of Fiona, she is kind of like water dependent. She needs to stay close to the water. So what are some of our physiological adaptations that she does?
So the first physiological adaptation with Fiona is skin respiration. Now this means that she can breathe through her skin. Now she still has lungs and she still has nostrils, but oxygen can move freely in and out of her skin.
Through the entire skin, yes.
Yes.
So you're telling me that she can breathe through their skin? Does that help her when she's underwater?
Exactly. So if she's swimming underwater, she can't use her nostrils, she can't use her lungs, but she can use her skin. And she can absorb the oxygen that's in the water, and that will keep her alive.
That's the reason. Is she slimy?
No, that's not the reason that she's slimy. She actually has a gland that produces a mucus. So she secretes this mucus that keeps her hydrated, but it not only keeps her hydrated, this mucus can also regulate her salt levels.
No
which,
way.
if she has too much salt, can kill her.
just like if you get too much salt, it can kill us too, like any animal.
Exactly.
That is so cool. But Yasmin, that actually kind of like remind me of something called compromise adaptation. A compromise adaptation, it is an adaptation that is good for one thing, but it could be very bad for other things. For example, you know a giraffe?
Yeah.
Has a super long neck. Okay, so that is a compromise adaptation because it's good to eat the leaves from a tall tree, but it's really bad, that neck, to drink from a waterfall. In the case of Fiona, then she has this beautiful skin and produce mucus, right? Which is a good physiological adaptation. But it is a compromise adaptation too, because then if she goes to a place where the water has toxin or the water is contaminated, then it will go straight through the entire skin and will kill her. And that's the reason frogs are good indicators of like a healthy environment. If you have water and you don't see frogs, you need to wonder if the water is good or not. But you know something? They can produce also poison.
Her?
She cannot produce poison.
Oh.
But other frogs, okay? Not Fiona. Fiona is a sweetheart. Look at that face. Okay, so she cannot produce poison, but there are some poisonous frogs. And they produce a toxin on their skin just to kind of like fight back that compromised adaptation.
So with Fiona, we went over skin respiration, we went over her mucus glands, compromised adaptation, and how some frogs contain toxins.
So we went through 4 different physiological adaptations using 4 different animals. We started with our geckos, talking about resource conservation.
So then we talked about our Russian tortoise. We talked about hibernation and estivation.
And the color of their carapace.
Exactly.
And then we jump into Hela, our emperor scorpion, and talk about venom and poison.
Exactly, and hyaline.
And we finish with this beautiful frog, Fiona, which we talk about
Skin respiration, we talked about mucus glands, compromised adaptation, and the ability to secrete toxins.
And that's it for this Survivor series. So please tune next week for another Nature Memoirs online learning class where we're going to be talking about what?
Well, it's gonna get a little hot.
Or cold. But you gotta tune in and subscribe and like to this video. And we'll see you next Friday to
Discover the truth in nature's voice.
Bye, scientists!